I'd say it's perfect for people who have a fear of letting go of taking control because they're so used to controlling every aspect of their life, and to actually surrender to someone else being like, we're doing this, we're doing that. This is a schedule and come enjoy.
Hey y'all.
I'm Soph.
And I'm Nat.
And we're the Travel Brats.
Welcome to our podcast.
We've been putting the brat in travel
Since 2020.
and we're just getting started.
From hidden gems to world-class travel.
We've been sharing hot and not destinations from a bird's eye view and a
Party of two. So what's on the itinerary today?
Hey, Travel Brats. It's Soph, and I'm super pumped, guys. Today we have a wonderful guest. We're going to talk with her about adventure travel with a purpose. And without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce her. Her name is Ting Ting Guan. She's an author, retreat leader, and movement practitioner who's traveled the world, hosting immersive trips in places like Mongolia, Egypt, Bali, and Mexico. She recently returned from Mongolia after learning she has Mongolian ancestry, and she went there to discover her roots and rode horseback across the steppes, spent time with eagle hunters, and lived with a nomadic family. So she's been all around, guys. She does wonderful trips, and I just want you guys to get to meet her today and connect with her and learn all about travel through the eyes of Ting Ting. So Ting Ting, hey, welcome.
Hello, Sofia. It's so great to be here and to be able to share these adventures with you.
Yeah, it's so great to have you. I've been really looking forward to this interview because I think you just have such a cool story, and I love the tours that you're doing. I love the way that you see travel. So we're just going to jump right into it. I first want to know a little bit more about your origin story. But before we do that, what kind of traveler would you say that you are?
You know, I really dance between the poles of extreme opposites. Either I am very, very prepared, overly scheduled, want to do all the little secret top pick kind of things, or I just completely wing it. Just like I'm doing right now. I'm in Japan, in Kyoto, and I finally booked my flight that I'm flying out of 2 days from now. And so I think that it's kind of fun to be a little bit of both and to give way to the flow and the current of whatever have you, whether that's the weather being disruptive or maybe something isn't working out or is working out. And I think that there's within the structure, just when there's a little bit of structure, that's when that flow can really be in your favor in terms of being a traveler.
Love that. I love that you kind of go with the flow based on your mood and how you're feeling. I don't think you necessarily have to be one or the other, because I feel like that sometimes too, especially if there's a place that I know well. Sometimes I'm like, I feel like I've done all the things that I had on my list for this place, but I want to go back just because I love it so much. And I'm just going to wander, go in any store I see, try a new restaurant, sit by the river, things like that. So I love that. Now, my second icebreaker for you, I've got to ask it. Would you be more of a boutique hotel girl or whatever's available?
I definitely prefer the boutique hotels. But then again, I just came back from Mongolia where we were living out of yurts and going to the bathroom in a giant hole on the side of a mountain. And so after I have that kind of experience, what I do search for is that luxury, that comfort, the feeling of the down feather pillows and feeling really taken care of. And so I would say that I'm both. I'm not a midi person. I'm again, like one of the extremes, and I dance between them. And if I have too much of one, I want to be wild in nature, naked and free and on a deserted island. And then if I feel I'm too wild and free, then I would love to feel fancy and have that nice cocktail overlooking the ocean and in a beautiful dress. So I feel like I'm both.
I'm so loving this because a lot of people we've interviewed seem to say one or the other. And I feel like, why can't you be both? Because I feel like that's how we are. And it's not necessarily about that's kind of one of our value props as a travel brat business is, are you getting the most out of your trip? Whether you do want to do luxury or you're kind of more of a rugged bang for your buck, it kind of depends on the place you're going to and what kind of experience you want to do. Say you could go to Hawaii for the luxury side, or you could go to Hawaii to just stay in an Airbnb and do as many hikes, wear no makeup, relax, and just be with nature. So I love that. I think that everybody can do both. Now, in terms of travel glowing up, when did you shift from vacation mode to this is how I want to experience the world and just your travel and career journey?
I've always found that, again, nature really inspires me. My movement form, my business is based off of flowing with the currents of nature, bringing the elemental forces into the body and bringing wellness and vitality through movement. And what I found was that when I went to these places, I wouldn't say it's vacation slash research slash just soul calling. I don't think I've actually ever been to like a quote unquote vacation. It always seems to be this location or place really pulled me on a deeper level than just I want to go there for the Instagram photos. And then when I realized that when I'm in these places, there's so much inspiration, there's so much vitality, there's so much joy. And I realized that I could actually bring others to it and be able to share this experience with others. And so I love bringing people to places that bring me joy, bring me inspiration. You mentioned Hawaii, and actually Hawaii is a huge place where I found so much of that deep, soulful connection to mama, to the nature, to the whales, to the animals, to the ocean, to the waterfalls, the sacred land. And so I realized, oh, wait, I don't have to do this by myself. I can do this with people who want to learn from me. And that slowly progressed into bringing people along with me. And most of the year that I plan ahead is, where do I want to go? Is my soul being called? And if people want to come with me, you know what? I might as well just invite them and see who comes. And 90% of the time, these retreats have been incredibly successful and booked out. And so I really feel like the people that feel that connection that I do to nature, they want to join and they want to do the movement. They want to feel not just a soul connection singularly, but also in a group field.
Yeah, Ting Ting, I'm so glad that you said that. I kind of hate the word vacation sometimes because I don't like the whole like, oh, I hate my life and it's an escape and I only have a 4-day weekend and I'm just going to go sit like a bum here. And I think that travel should be more of an adventure and a cultural experience. And like you said, a connection with other people, a new culture, history, or like your trip to Mongolia, which we will talk about very soon, a trip to connect with your roots and your own history, which is super neat and super meaningful. Travel should have an impact on us when we go. You mentioned your hosting and your traveling and your group trips. How is traveling as a retreat leader different from traveling on your own, just for your own adventure and your own fun?
Oh, yeah, there's a dramatic difference. I mean, there are parts of it that merge because the little kid in you as a retreat host is still alive when you're going to all these new places, or maybe it'll be my 12th time in Egypt at this point because I've hosted Egypt for so long, but still I can't help but have this joy, this awe for places I've been in multiple times. You always see these deeper layers of whether that's a temple space or a city or the people. And there's still that joy that bubbles up inside. And of course, it's a lot different than being a single individual going through these spaces where you can just take as much time as you need, do whatever you want, be in your own inward journey, spiritually and soulfully. Whereas being a host, you're really kind of making sure that the field of your people they're feeling safe, they have everything they need, they're hydrated, they have water, they know where the bathroom is, all these other things. That it's kind of like I always say I'm herding kittens all the time when I'm going to this, because they're all going off in different directions. There's a cute little shop over there and they're all are going in the wrong direction. And then I have other people that need to pee. And then I have other people who are wanting to take group photos. And so it's more when I'm hosting a retreat, it's more of like, I feel like I'm herding people and I'm just kind of like, no, let's all stay together. We're all going to have time to do everything. Being in a group field is incredibly powerful because that energy is amplified and we sort of allow each other to expand in that energy and we share something really deep and really special. And it is still special on your own, but to be able to share it with others, it just makes it so much more rich and so much more fulfilling.
Well, I love that. And I think you're so right. I think there's something so special about group trips and just the connection with other people. In terms of deepness and just rooting and special trips, I want to talk about, probably, if you disagree, let me know, but one of your most special and important trips for you as a traveler and as a human being, Mongolia. So tell us about the entire Ancestry adventure.
Yes. I actually, for the longest time, thought that I was 100% Chinese. My roots were in China. I grew up speaking Mandarin. I was born in China. Both my parents are very Chinese, for lack of a better word. But then I've always wondered, I have this really thick curly hair. And I always wondered, why do I have such thick curly hair? This isn't actually a quality of most Chinese people. So I decided to take an ancestry test. And lo and behold, when I received the results, it said I was like something like 86% Mongolian. And
Wow.
I showed this to my family and they completely rejected it. They're like, oh, it must be wrong. You have the wrong results. It must be someone else. And of classic, very Chinese parents of them. And so I'm like, okay, well, if they're not going to listen to me, then I will take these matters into my own hands. And I've always been so fascinated by the Mongolian people. I consider them the Native Americans of Asia. They're very nomadic. They're very connected to earth and nature. They live off the land. They have such beautiful rituals and such deep connection to the family and the animals that are based in that region. And so I reached out. I actually happened to be just randomly talking to a friend about how much I wanted to go. And he goes, oh, one of my best friends from high school lives there and I can connect you. And I was like, wait, hold on. This is the same person that I had actually been following on Instagram for a very long time. His name is Eric Cooper. He runs derbies in Patagonia and races in Mongolia.
Wow.
And so we connected and he's like, come, why don't you make this into one of your Guanjing retreats and bring people and come? And I said, absolutely. We made the plans and I told him, I was like, listen, I have never ridden a horse in my life. And I'm a little bit nervous because I see your videos to get to the point of when you're riding horseback, holding a golden eagle. I'm like, I don't know how to exactly get to that point and prepare myself without being there for months ahead anyway. And so he said, just take some horseback riding lessons. And so I did. And that was actually a hilarious journey because there's a major difference between being in a corral on a horse with a woman telling you how to sit properly while the horse is on this long line versus being on a half feral horse where they just don't listen to you at all. And then you're just going full on galloping across the Great Plains, across jagged rock cliff edges with
Literally can't imagine.
with like sub-zero degree temperatures, and also following these incredible men with holding their golden eagles going hunting. Like there is a dramatic difference. And so even though I'd say I'm happy that having the horseback riding lessons helped me become more familiar with the horse, nothing could have prepared me for what it was actually like while I was there.
That's awesome that you just said, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to learn how to ride a horse. I'm not going to be afraid of the eagle. I'm going to go experience my cultural heritage. I think that is so neat. It is so fun. I mean, and that's a true adventure where you also learn a lot from travel. And those are like the immersive experiences you want when you travel. I mean, you're not going to go all the way to Mongolia to sit by a pool or relax. I mean, again, you can have those evenings where you can go to a nice restaurant, enjoy the cultural food. But I think that is so neat because it's part of history and culture, which is so important when you travel. You talked about a lot of culture shock right there. But what would you say was the biggest culture shock for you just in general when you got to Mongolia?
I would say I had prepared for them to be part of the land and for me to be part of the land. I would say the biggest culture shock was I didn't realize how much, and I knew it in some way, but it didn't appear real until I was there, how much they use literally every part of the animal. And so, for example, the biggest shock to me was we're in these yurts, there's a fire tender, and he was very sweet. Every few hours, he'd make sure the fire was continuing to warm up these yurts for us, even throughout the night. But what I didn't realize until like a few days into it was that they were actually using all of the yak dung to burn in the stove and to keep the fire warm.
All right.
And so I was like, wow, there's this interesting smell. I'm like, oh, it just must be whatever wood they're using. No, they were using yak dung. And so that was probably the biggest shock for me.
Yeah, talk about it. I think that's really interesting how they use the whole animal. I've, read about it in history books, but to see it for yourself and to smell it and to just have all the senses immersed in this process. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of nomadic life, I know you stayed with your nomadic family there. What did the daily life look like there?
A lot of herding of animals. They're up at just before the sun rises, and the people don't actually sleep. Like the fire tender doesn't sleep. He stays up all night tending to fires, and then he takes a break in the day, and someone else takes over. And so they're constantly working. They're constantly making sure things are running and going, and people are warm, and the food right after breakfast is finished, they're already after cleaning up, they're already preparing for lunch, right? So it just literally never stops. They're constantly making sure that they're in the rhythm of what schedule they need to be on in order to stay alive and stay afloat for the next day. There's no like, oh, I'm gonna sit back and relax. It's always a rhythm of labor and of love and cycling with the sun, and when the sun sets, when the sun rises, and also things like taking care of the bathroom situation, making sure that like we had basically a little tent with a plastic a bag that had the toilet paper in it, and then this giant hole. And then when there was too much in dirt in the giant hole, because what you do if you go number two is you would then take a little shovel and then kind of throw some dirt on top of it, right, and pat it down. And by that time, if five people, it was so funny, me and the people there, that guests that came, we were all cracking up because before breakfast, everyone had their coffee and they're all standing outside in this line to go to there's a number two bathroom and a number one bathroom, and no one was at the number one bathroom. Everyone was at the number two.
So you know who's got to go number two. There's no hiding it.
Exactly. So we're all standing there with our coffees, freezing our butts off, looking at each other, cracking up, being like, well, hey, at least we have healthy bowel movements, I guess.
Yeah. It's all that nomadic fresh food that you're eating.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, it was like some of the best food I've ever had in my life. So hearty, so nourishing, using every part of the animal, the bone. And I laughed because they were preparing more of the westernized food for the people, because people come from all over the world, but most of the culture, the people that come are coming from more first world countries. And so they are taking all the nice cuts of meat and they're giving it to us. Meanwhile, I see the nomadic people sitting in their own area of the yurt and they're gnawing the gristle off the giant bone of a yak. And I literally look over and I'm like, wait, I want that one though. I want
I want the authentic experience. Like, don't give me the nice cut.
Yeah. Like, I love chewing meat off the bone.
Well, it must be part of their culture that they are very welcoming to, we'll call the tourists newcomers or sojourners or strangers. They're nice to the tourists.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I want to know, you have your own opinions, but I'm sure that people you've led on this guided tour have their own opinions as well. So based on what you've heard and what you've experienced, what's something people get totally wrong about nomadic living?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest thing is people romanticize what it's going to be like. They're like, oh my God, look how beautiful the clothing is. You're in all this fur, this beautiful silk dress, and you have this nice fancy fur hat on, and you're looking so graceful with this beautiful golden eagle, and I want to do that. And the reality of the situation is it's really harsh and tough. My whole entire body was so sore after just one day of riding. I could barely move. It's really hard to be able to handle the eagle as well because there's so many elements that are involved. There's the wind. And so if you turn the bird in a certain direction, it catches their wings and they like end up flying off of your hand. So you have to make sure constantly that the beak is facing the direction of the wind so they're not falling over. And then the weight of the bird, then the bird itself is like kind of nibbling on your hand. You're making sure that it's not coming off of your glove, because the moment the claw gets onto your bare hand, you're like, oh boy, I'm in trouble. The way that they grip, their talons are very large and powerful, but it's not about their talons. It's about when they grip, because the grip creates the pressure. That's when it starts becoming dangerous. And then on top of that, you have the dryness of the climate, the crazy amount of gusts of wind, how cold it is. So many different extremes. And then also, like, one thing that people don't even account for is then the extreme of the heat inside the yurt that makes you just like, you're just drying up, you're like, dry cough, but you're warm, so you can't complain about that. And so there's just a huge misconception about this, how glamorous it looks versus how tough you need to be in order to actually handle being there for a long period of time.
Right. It sounds so physically demanding. I guess a tip for people that do want to do this trip is you guys got to be a little bit physically fit. And if you want to enjoy the experience, ready to do things like horseback ride and have an eagle grip your arm, make sure that's something that A, you're going to be comfortable with, but B, like that you're physically fit enough for, because I'm sure that eagle is pretty heavy too.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and actually there's exercises that Eric told us to do, which is all these shoulder exercises. And he's like, you got to be able to lift at least 25 pounds, one on each side of your arm to so that you're able to lift the eagle. And also when it lands on you, because it's flying at full speed and your arm has to stay straight and you have to hold your arm for it to be able to land on you. It can't be a little jiggly noodle. It has to be very like solid for it to land safely and properly. And yeah, you need to be physically fit or you can't complain when you're there, because there's nothing you can do once you're there. You have to be able to handle it and take it like a man, or else you're just going to be miserable. But that's what makes you so much more resilient. I mean, I was laughing with my partner after this because we were looking at other horseback riding adventures and we were looking at all the different ones, and it was like, oh, just a nice trail through the pastures of France to see these castles. And then there's these other things going through vineyards in Italy and this other thing in Greece. And I was like, wow, we went to the most insane possible trek with horses. Like, I can do any of this now. This all seems like a walk in the park compared to what I went through in Mongolia.
You're going from 100 to 0 now, Ting Ting. So you can do any horseback riding that your heart desires on the beach, in the vineyards, all those PG horseback riding. Oh, that's great. It's funny because when you talked about the way it seems and looks and kind of how you romanticize it, I think of that because you're kind of going back in history with this trip. I think about how we romanticize like stories and history, where all the time I tell my husband, I would love to be living back in this era where they wear those beautiful gowns and the gloves and the hats. And he's like, oh yeah, you want to know indoor plumbing and you want to be sweating 24/7 in the middle of summer in like South Louisiana or South Alabama. And it's funny. You really do romanticize these things, but I also romanticized you so much when I saw, I love you, Ting Ting. When I saw your picture holding the eagle, I thought exactly what you were talking about. I was like, oh my gosh, she looks like a fantasy heroine, like Mongolian queen with her eagle and her hat and her costume. It was pretty amazing. So we'll have to post that for the brats to check it out. It was a really cool picture. I'm sure you love that picture because it kind of encompasses the whole going back in time. Look like one of your ancestors. And I think it's all great points about just the reality of the trip and what people need to be ready for. Would you recommend it to the average traveler or only to hardcore travelers?
I would recommend it to anyone who has the resiliency in their bodies to be able to handle it. If you're someone who's like, oh, I'm tired after like a 3-mile hike, don't go. just don't go. And if you really want to go, then you need to go to the gym and lift some heavy weights and do some endurance stuff. This is also a misconception about horseback riding. People think, oh, I'm just on the horse and no, you are working it. And I'm out of breath when I'm riding a horse, especially when they're going fast, because you really have to keep your body in harmony with the horse. You can't just be like flopping around completely just disconnected to the animal underneath of you. So you're really navigating, you're using your core a lot, you're using your arms, you're using your back muscles, you're using your whole body. And like I said, like after just one day getting off that horse, my entire body was just wrecked. And I am someone who is constantly at the gym doing my movement form, lifting weights. I had been practicing riding on horseback, and your thighs, your inner thighs, your calves, everything and little random parts of your body get sore where you're like, I didn't know a muscle existed in this area.
Well,
When you
exactly. Yeah. That's the thing is I think a lot of people don't realize that it's just different muscles and different movements. So they're like, well, I'm fit. And then they go and they're like, oh crap, I really am struggling. I've experienced that on like long hikes where I'm like, well, I hike, but I haven't done a 16-mile hike right now. So I can't walk. My muscles are like, what did we just do? But I think it's great advice that you just gave. And for those travelers that they really want to do it, but they're a little bit nervous. Like, I want to be there. I want to do that. But I have a bit of a fear of traveling to China or Mongolia. What would be your advice for them?
Mongolia, China, these people are so sweet. They're so caring. They're so non-judgmental. I find that when I travel, it was my first time back in China a few years ago since leaving there when I was 5. And going back, I just realized that they really want the people of the West to have a good time, despite what the global situation is between the countries, or despite any of that. The people there are really incredible. The nomads, the Mongolians are very, very, very sweet and inviting. I think there's this fear not because of the people, but almost because of communication, right? This inability to communicate certain things because of the language barrier. And I would have to agree, you go to China, not many people are going to speak English unless you're in a city, in an airport or something like that. Same goes for Mongolia. Most people, they don't speak it. So you have to prepare for it. Get your Google Translator, make sure you have the international Wi-Fi and reception so you're able to communicate. I think for me, that's sometimes the most frustrating thing of all, is like you're trying to say something like, where's the bathroom? And I often get told by my friends I'm really good at charades at this point because I'm like, I need to pee, or like, where's the phone, or the bus. I'm making all these like physical gestures, and people are like, wow, you would win at charades every time. And then sometimes I get it, and I'm talking to someone, they laugh, they're like, oh, and then they also charade to me back, and so I actually find that kind of hilarious too. But just for people who feel nervous about going to these countries, just know that people in general just want to support you and help you. And just make sure you have the internet to be able to communicate properly.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip. Now, I want to talk a little bit about identity and just identity, ancestry, travel. It's becoming a huge thing because we do have things like ancestry.com, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think traveling somewhere tied to your background hits different than visiting a random destination?
There's definitely something I would say that really touches your heart when you go back to a place of the origin of where you came from, the ancestry, the DNA. And there is that like almost familiarity to it, a feeling of, oh, okay, I see my habits, or I see my characteristic in these people, or in my taste for food, or in my taste for clothing, or whatever have you. Or I think both are important.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. I do love the traveling to your roots and just getting in touch with your heritage. And again, like you said, you find a lot of times, and I don't know how this technically works, but I love Italian food. I'm half Italian. I just feel at home a lot of times in Mexico, even though I hardly speak good Spanish. There's some things about the culture where you're like, I connect with these people. This is where my family comes from and I connect with them. So I think all the things you say are so interesting. What would be your biggest takeaway about yourself as a traveler from a trip like this?
I would say that I am more capable than I thought I would be for especially this type of trip. When I was on the flight to Mongolia, I was actually really worried that I wasn't going to be strong enough to handle riding horseback for 6 to 7 hours a day in sub-zero degree climate. And after the 4th or 5th day, I was having a blast on the horse. When I first started off, I thought I was going to die, especially when they just start going at full speed. And there's 2 choices. I either give up and I fall and I fly off the thing because I want to hit the eject button because my nervous system is so overloaded right now, or I breathe and I stick with it and I transform this nervous energy into like greater strength. And once you do that, there's something so just life changing about that. Realizing your true strength, realizing how your true nature, realizing how far your resiliency can take you, and believing in yourself. And then by the time I left, I was like, I don't want to go. I want to stay with on my horse. And I love this life. And like, what is the point of life if I'm not on a horse anymore? Like, I'm like, I like, went back home and I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
That's great. It's so true. I think a lot of times the biggest thing that gets in the way of things that we want to do is just our own fear of facing it and our own fear of being able to accomplish it. I think a lot of travelers are like, oh, I couldn't go there alone, or I couldn't figure this out. And it's funny. Again, my husband is older than me. He's very wise. But a lot of times I'm like, well, I don't want to do that by myself. And he's like, well, at some point you're going to have to figure it out. So why don't you just start now? And, it's like, just go on this trip by yourself and figure it out. Like, you will surprise yourself. And like you said, you'll think, not only will you think that's easy to a lot of things, but you'll be surprised at what your body can do. And like you said, you'll be surprised at what your mind can do and how it actually enjoyed the physical pushing and the mental pushing. I think that's a great point. And I want to talk a little bit about imitating destinations. Mongolia and China, they can feel, again, intimidating. What would you say is the biggest misconception that people have about that country or about those places in general?
I think people are terrified because they don't know where to go. Actually, they don't really know much about China. They don't really know like how to even begin to plan a trip for China. I mean, first of all, China is very, very vast. In fact, I'm planning a retreat in China in the Yunnan mountains for where the birthplace of Pu'er is, with the Bulang tribe. And so people are kind of like, what do I even do in China? And I think so that's a major thing. So it's kind of like you got to pick your own adventure, because actually China has everything. You have the crazy mega cities. You have the beautiful, gorgeous countrysides. You have the megaliths that are more grand and more strange than the Great Pyramids, but no one even hears about them, right? So it's like, do you want to go on a spiritual adventure? Do you want to go on a very physical backpacking adventure? Do you want to have a city life? Do you want to experience all of it? How much travel do you actually want to do? And I think one amazing thing about being in Asia and other countries, Europe has it too, is the train system. Like taking a train is so much less stressful than having to fly and do all the security check and then the screenings, and then you got to be there 2 hours ahead and all these different things. And I found that like one amazing thing is the train system. It's absolutely impeccable. There's trains going everywhere, and you have just so much more freedom to kind of wing it than having to plan a flight, because then the tickets are going to get high and then you have to be stressed out about that. I think that you have to first decide, when you are going to a place like Mongolia or going to a place like China, why are you going there? What exactly do you wish to see? For me personally, when I go to China, I love seeing the ancient cities, the cities where there's still rivers and you can literally hire a guy on a boat to have a tea ceremony as you're floating down the river through these cherry blossoms. That's my vibe for China. And going to all these little villages where they're making dumplings and you just sit on a little stool and you eat the dumplings, right? I prefer doing that rather than the mega city aspect, right? I have enough. I go to New York all the time, Los Angeles. I've been there, done that. I don't really need to explore much. So yeah, it's just figuring out like, what is your intention of going there?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to think about before you go. It's funny that you had mentioned we're doing a series on just travel tips, and it's great that you mentioned the train systems, because I think a lot of people, they get nervous, like you said, because they don't know how to travel around. But I mean, it's a quick Google search, and if you just prepare your mind for, okay, I'm trained, so I need to pack for riding on trains, and I need to make sure I know how to get tickets, etc., things like that, it can become so much easier. It's just a little bit of research at the beginning. Now, I do want to know, with China, what were you nervous about before you visited China for the first time?
Well, the visa to get to China was definitely more complicated, especially actually for me, ironically, because I had Chinese citizenship prior. So then they were wanting to know all of these reasons why I don't have a Chinese citizenship anymore. And I needed proof that I was, and I needed my first passport from China. So it was actually much more complicated than if you were just in American citizen and you just took your passport off to get the visa. And it is a 10-year visa. So you can go in and out of China then for the next 10 years. And then the reapplication is much easier. But the first initial process is going to be, I think it's a little more costly, especially if you get sent it out to a visa agent, which I highly recommend you do, unless you want to sit hours in the Chinese embassy at your local city hall. And so that was definitely the most intimidating part. I'm like, okay, how do I get my visa actually? Because they needed all this additional paperwork. And then the price was, to get the visa was a little more costly. But then at the end of the day, now I have a 10-year visa, and it's really nice to be able to go in and out of China. And then the second thing that felt really intimidating was like again, what you said, how do I travel around China? What am I taking? What are they like with flights? What are they like with trains? And then realizing it's actually quite easy on a train and way less stressful than taking a flight. And of course, if you want to take a flight, the flights are very relaxed. When you go to the airport in China, it's not crazy. Everyone's just actually really chill.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's different from the US.
It's so different. I mean, no, Chinese people don't have a sense of personal space, but they are very relaxed and friendly. If you're like at the hot water, and because they have hot water everywhere, everyone loves tea, so everyone's filling their hot water. They don't just stand behind you, giving you a 1 or 2 feet. They're just right up against you, like they're just leaning on you, waiting for you to finish filling your tea. And you kind of look at them, and at first I was like, "Do you need something?" And I realized, oh yeah, this is just how my people are.
Yeah. Like, oh, my people, they just love me. Like they're just cozy. Like we're cozy. We're a cozy tribe. Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's interesting about airports. Gosh, wouldn't that be nice? Here at the Travel Brats, we love our hots and knots. Was there a moment or like a most memorable travel story where you kind of thought, why did I sign up for this? Or like, I can't believe this is happening.
I think that happens a lot when I am in Egypt. I've had those experiences.
Okay.
Egypt is crazy. Egypt, and I've been so many times. Again, it's going to be my 12th time the next time I visit. And every time I go through the airport, I'm like, this is it. I'm never going back to Egypt again. This is absolute insanity. Their airports are insane. It's just chaos. And there was one time, actually the last time I was there, in my head as I'm going through the airport, I'm like, I'm never coming back. But of course, once I hit being on the Nile, I'm on the boat, seeing the Nubian village, I'm like, I love Egypt. But when I'm in the airport, they had an additional security scan before you even could go to check your bags and check in. But there's only 2 security scans. So there's only 2 like belts where you can put all your luggage in. Meanwhile, there is an insane flood of people. It's an international airport. Yeah. And so just these 2 security belts, people are trying to jam all. I've never seen anything so chaotic in my life. I mean, I was like, wow, if there was like actually a natural disaster or something really serious were to happen, people would start, I was like, this is at a point where people would just start killing each other. Like, this is crazy. Wow. I mean, grown men, I was actually really angry at this, like grown men are trying to knock me over with their giant suitcases so that they could get ahead in line. Like, there was no manner, there was no humility, there was no like, we're all in this together, let's try to make some order of it. It was just pure chaos. People were climbing over each other. People were jumping on top of the security belt, trying to shove their suitcase in and then trying to climb over the other people to cut in line. I was like, oh my God.
What a cultural difference.
What is happening right now? And it was funny because after you get to the other side, after you finally go through that hell and get to the other side, because everyone was scared that they were going to miss their flight. And obviously no plane was taking off, especially if 90% of the people are on the other side unable to check in, right? So all the flights are delayed. And finally get to the other side and you see these people again in line to check in. And it's like, do you remember you just nearly like killed me?
Oh, 5 minutes ago? Awkward.
So that was one of the most intense moments I've ever had traveling, and a moment where I really was like, okay, you need to regulate your nervous system, stay calm, take slow, deep breaths. I was becoming really claustrophobic. I was becoming a little bit panicky over this, how people were acting. So I just remained calm, and then it passed. But it was definitely one of those moments of like, do I like traveling? I don't know anymore.
It's funny that you mentioned the do I like traveling, because it's such a love-hate relationship. It's, oh, I'm having so much fun. And then it's like, oh, get out of my way. Or like, I can't believe we just missed that train. Or why are people rioting and this is closed now? Or that's part of the fun. And you get some hilarious stories and memories from it. But like in the moment, sometimes you're just like, oh, but you have to remind yourself, brats, that's part of travel. It's always, nothing's ever going to go. It's funny. I recently went on a trip with friends, and we prepped, like you said, we prepped our minds before the trip. But I just said, now remember, if things go wrong, like it's okay. Like that's part of it. For people that don't travel a lot, it can be really frustrating. I mean, even for us who do travel a lot, like you said, sometimes you're just like, hey, watch it, buddy. Like, what's your deal? Watch where you're going. Now, you mentioned Egypt. So I want to stay on Egypt for a minute and just ask you, a lot of people really want to go to Egypt for a lot of the reasons that you listed, just especially the history, the culture, the pyramids. Like, for those people who are kind of worried about safety in Egypt, what is it actually like on the ground?
I would say if you're worried about someone stealing your stuff or theft, that is not really a huge issue there, because the repercussions, the fines that happen if someone gets caught are so gravitas.
Right.
And I have only experienced one moment where something like that did happen, and everybody, the hotel staff, all the people took it so seriously, because it's a very like strong claim to say that someone stole something. Or I've never seen like pickpocketing, that kind of stuff. It's not there because it's so, you're dishonoring your family. It's really embarrassing to kind of do that stuff. Now, what I would say is a bit of my biggest frustration with Egypt would be the amount that the vendors and the people that sell push you to buy their stuff. It's kind of, oh no, the moment you glance at something, like, oh, you want this? Oh, there's 5 different colors. And then they start following you down the street. Please, miss, buy this thing. And you're like, whoa, someone needs to give everybody a marketing lesson that this is not how you sell stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that is my biggest tip, is when you go to the marketplaces, to be prepared that people are going to approach you. Are they going to steal from you? No. But are they going to be really annoying trying to sell their stuff? Yeah. And so what I actually do is when I go to the market, I go to the market and I stay in the shops where they don't bother me. And when they don't bother me, I'm like, cool. Even if maybe this other person had something I wanted more, I'm staying here because what they're giving me is they're giving me peace. And so that's my biggest advice when you go shopping there. It's chaotic. It's wild. You're kind of in the Middle East in that way, right? You're in a bazaar. There's definitely people that are going to want to trick you and stuff. So you have to be smart. You can't be this person like, oh, I trust everything you say. And this, like, you really have to have your wits about you, because they'll sell you. They'll be like, oh, this is brass. And you look at it, you're like, this isn't brass, actually.
Is that really brass?
They'll say whatever to get you to buy the thing. And you're like, this isn't, they'll be like, no, this is 100% silk. And then you feel it. You're like, this is polyester.
You have nice eyes. Buy this quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And so, sometimes instead of getting frustrated, I've learned to kind of flip the script on them. So if there's a man who's really persistent, he's like, no, please, like, oh, where are you from? They're asking all these questions like, where are you from? And I'll be like, outer space. And then they'll be like, oh, what's your name? And I'll look at him and I'll be like, Muhammad. We have a good laugh. And then my other tip is, if they're really trying to sell you something, then you try selling something to them. They're like, oh, you want my bag? My bag is for $5,000.
That's hilarious. It's so funny you mentioned that. I've not been to Egypt, but I am well versed in, and I won't say this for the whole Latino culture, because again, I cannot speak for a lot of the Latin American countries, but Mexico, just like that. I think, in my opinion, it's continually gotten worse as their political system has gotten more corrupt, and they're trying to make more and more money, these small businesses, because they're taxed so much by the cartels. They're really like, please buy this. And I've had men at their stands follow me all the way down the street and around the block, like, ma'am, please come back. I love you. You know, you need this. And it's like, wowza. So yes, it's like you said, I need to learn to be a little more like you, where composed, or if you want to engage with them, to kind of not get aggressive, but like joke with them, you know, like, hey, look, I like this, I'm going to come back. And I think a good note while we're on this topic for people, because I think a lot of Americans, because we're so used to our culture, you can bargain with these people. You know, say, oh, maybe it isn't brass, so you're going to give it to me for like $2, right? I always give my friends culture shock when they travel with me and they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, yes, you can. You can do it in a lot of stores, not just outside market booths, because a lot of people in foreign countries, they're willing to bargain. They're trying to sell. I think that's kind of part of the fun. I kind of act how you do, and that's part of the fun. Now, I want to know, we talked a little bit about the Unan Mountains and the Bulan tribe in Egypt. Those are some of your most adventurous trips, and you do tours to those places. Are there any that I'm missing?
Well, those are the ones that I'm focusing on right now. I'm also going and spending some time and doing this spiritual journey through Greece that's coming up in May. We're going to all the different oracle temples. We're going to the Corinthian cave, where it is known that this is the cave of Pan. We're also going to Glastonbury as well every year. So Glastonbury is in the UK. It's known for the mists of Avalon. So essentially, when you look at it from overhead, it literally looks like a beautiful naked woman laying down with two giant hills and this V shape at the bottom. And so there's a lot of beautiful like stories and myths and tales about the way that the spiral is in Greece. I love going to those places, and that's happening at the beginning of the summertime. So I'm really excited to go back.
Oh, that's fantastic. Before I forget, I think you had mentioned also Bali in Mexico. And on that topic, Bali and Puerto Escondido are popular, and a lot of people want to travel in a more local way. How would you keep those trips feeling authentic and not too touristy?
In terms of Mexico, I would say I really enjoyed being in Oaxaca, being in Mexico City. It just very laid back atmosphere. And you mentioned how Mexico can be really pushy with shops and people at the markets. And in those two cities, actually super relaxed. There's a local culture there. So there's a lot of people, expats that live there. It's more culturally diverse, which allows for more reasonable prices, less fake things and haggling and stress with buying things. It just seemed to me those two places specifically were very down to earth and very welcoming and very sweet. I would say that because it is more of a local feel, you kind of sink into that culture very quickly. I just rented an Airbnb in Oaxaca, and I was in just a very cozy neighborhood with locals all around. The woman had a shop downstairs. There was a small little restaurant, and it just seemed like really easily to just sink in. More of the touristy places such as Puerto Escondido, that's when you're going to get the, like, hey, this is where the white people go and this is where the local people go, right? And so I like to go to cities and stay in cities longer that have that more of a mixed bag expat with the local feel. And in terms of Bali, Bali really blew up over the last decade. And there's including this whole swell of Russians that came in when the whole war with the Ukraine was going on. It's really changed in the diversity of people. And what I would say about Bali, and I love Bali. I used to live in Bali. I lived in Bali for 4 years from beginning in 2017. And I've seen it change. I've seen it become more luxury, the amount of buildup that happened. But I still have so much love for Bali. I'm about to head there in a few days. And so I would say with Bali, I like going to the more outskirty areas. I don't really like going into the inner city, not cities, but the more concentrated areas like Canggu or Ubud. The traffic is insane. But I like staying outside where the rice paddies are, where there's more space, Sesay Beach around. You're still able to get into like the fun restaurants and the fun shops, but you're still able to have this spaciousness. That's what makes Bali so alluring and so attractive. I remember when I lived there in 2017, I rented a 3-bedroom house with a giant pool surrounded by rice paddies. near the heart of Ubud, and it was like $400 a month, including
Wow.
cleaners and all that stuff. You can't get that now, which is so sad. But that's what I still look for. I still look for that spaciousness, that feeling of like I'm in the middle of nowhere.
I think that's a great way to, like you said, you can still go to the restaurants and the shops, but you're kind of out in nature. And that is a very beautiful part of Thailand, just the countryside, the rice paddies and the trees. I mean, the foliage, the greenness of that country is amazing. And I loved how you mentioned some of the more relaxed places in Mexico, because like you said, wherever you go, you can get such a 180 difference. And I just love Mexico. I just love the people. Yes, I'm Mexican, so I'm a little biased. But like you said, with your Mongolian nomadic tribe friends, it's just that specific culture. It's always nice to go to a place because I've traveled to places where they're not very friendly with tourists in certain areas. And Mexico, I've never experienced any cold person. Maybe some annoying people, like the guys trying to sell you stuff, depending on where you are. If you're in that, like you said, Cancun down to Riviera Maya area, yeah, you better expect it. But I just love the people. They're so friendly. They're so welcoming. They're so kind. They love sharing their culture and their stories and their history and their food with you. And again, Bali, it just sounds amazing to me. And you can't beat the price in a lot of these places, especially Bali. That's such a great place to go to experience the beaches and the culture. And you're not, no wonder so many Europeans travel there. They're a little closer, but than we are, but it's worth the trip. It really is. Well, now, Ting Ting, I want to talk a little bit about travel tips because you're obviously well-traveled. Some kind of first adventure trip advice. What should somebody know before booking an adventure or retreat style trip?
I would say be aware of where you're going in terms of health. Like you just hosted a retreat recently in Mexico where a lot of people got food poisoning and they weren't prepared for it properly. And so it's like, where are you going? Are you going to a place known for unsafe water or unsafe food or maybe food poisoning? Bali's known for that. A lot of third world countries, India is known for that. So if you're interested in going and seeing the culture and seeing the people and seeing the beautiful history in the temples, just also be aware of the reality of the state of their government and their systems and their organization. If you're someone who can't stand disorganization and hate chaos, then I wouldn't suggest going to India. I wouldn't suggest going to these other places, right? Because you're going to be stressed out and frustrated. If you're someone who likes and really appreciates calmness, cleanliness, really well functioning systems of trains and really reliable resources, then I would suggest going to places, like Switzerland or like Japan or places that are just their governing systems are more organized. So just knowing your own personality and being like, am I compatible with this country? Firstly, then taking that next step. And if you aren't compatible to that country, being prepared and knowing that there's going to be moments of frustration or you might question yourself, why did I come here? I hate how crazy it is. Everyone's trying to rip me off and I can't get a cab to save my life. It's like, well, that's kind of just the culture of that place and understanding that. So do your research first. Okay, what is their system like? Am I into it? Is it something that feels nice to me? And especially first time travelers, go to somewhere that's like you dip your toe into something, like maybe go to Europe. That's going to be very good for Westerners and you can get accustomed and acclimated to Europe very easily. You fall in love with Europe almost instantaneously, I would say, for 99% of the people. So I would just be aware of that.
I'm laughing in my head so hard because I literally just got a typhoid shot today to go to Bolivia. And I'm like, it's not worth getting some of that stuff. Just like get what you need to get, take your malaria pills or get your typhoid shot. You don't want to end up having a real problem and really hating your trip. No, those are all great tips, Ting Ting. In terms of packing, you're well-traveled, so I want to know what's one thing you always pack no matter the destination?
Very good question. I bring my red light, little compact light everywhere I go. Whether if I'm on my moon and I need something to warm or I have an injury, or it's also good for your face. It's just that nice little infrared light does so much. And, I've had clients that come on my retreat who've injured their knee, and I give them the red light therapy. And it's small, it's compact, but it's really, really helpful in so many situations. Also, my travel Theragun, my massage gun, oh my gosh, it's a lifesaver when you're sitting for hours on a plane and you just get that little Theragun out and you just massage your back for 5-10 minutes on the plane. Such a lifesaver. And I always have that on my carry-on.
I love that. That's actually a great idea for even like blood clotting. If you want to pound your calves a little bit and just kind of work out your muscles and get your blood flow going, that's a great idea. Now, to just close my little section on travel tips, I want to know, what's a travel mistake you've made that you will never repeat? Because now you know.
Oh man, well, there have been so many that now I've become all the wiser. So let me just think, okay, you know what? One thing that I now is a non-negotiable for me, well, two things. Constantly making sure I booked the right date and time, because there's 3 times now where I've booked like the wrong year or the wrong month for some random reason. And I'm like, wait, how did I do this? And it's a non-refundable ticket because there's just one from, going from one short city to another. And I'm like, no. So now I've become obsessed with making sure that it's the right date, the right time, the right airport. You have to triple check that to make sure it's the right airport. Because there's also times where I'm like, wait, this isn't the airport I'm supposed to be at. That actually happened on the last trip in Mexico. And my partner looks at me and he's like, are you serious? And I was like, I'm so sorry. And we sit there. Don't book again.
It's so funny because so many people do that. And I'm like, I have terrible attention to detail. So yeah, I've got to look at it, look away, look at it again, look at it. Like I'm my fingers shaking next to the, purchase button. I'm like, is this right? Sometimes even make my husband come over here. Look at this. I'm leaving this day and that day. Does this say the day that I just said? And he's like, yeah.
You can't book it when you're tired.
Yes, it's literally so true. I'm thinking of all the times I've literally done that, and it's been so bad, but so funny.
It's so funny. And then my friend, there was one time where I booked it for the wrong year, and I texted my girl that helps me sometimes arrange cars, and she's like, why are you having me arrange this for next year? And I was like, what? It's supposed to be for next week. And then, when she's like, it says like this year. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Oh man. Yes.
Impossible.
Yes. Always great to check that.
Always triple, quadruple, have someone else look at it, like literally it just to save you just so much pain and suffering, just always quadruple check. And then the last thing I would say is booking a flight that doesn't make you want to kill yourself. So spend the extra $500 to not take this crazy red eye with 2 connections. Right. Take the direct flight, book the premium. If you can, try to book the premium economy, or if you have the extra cash, book that business class for an overnight flight. Your body is going to thank you so much for it. How can you enjoy being in a country if you're just absolutely wrecked health-wise?
What's it worth, guys? Come on, let's be real. You want to feel good on your vacation. You want to feel good on your trip, not feel terrible. Yeah. So, no, that's great. And remember, for those of you who make little button mistakes like Ting Ting and I, there is a place in Australia for people that were supposed to go to Austria, and there's a place at the airport in Austria for people that were supposed to go to Australia. If that makes you feel any better about your mistakes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
People that are so dyslexic like me do these things.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I saw something like that, and then I went and looked into it, and I was like, dang. Okay, I feel better about myself now. I guess you got it. No matter what, though, if you were going to go to Australia and you end up in Austria, you're going to have a pretty good time, and vice versa. There's stuff to do.
Yeah. 2 great countries.
Yeah, 2 epic countries. So while we're on the note of just laughing and having a good time, I want to just give you some rapid fire questions, Ting Ting, and just first thing that pops into your head.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Window or aisle?
Ooh, window.
Okay, same. Mountains or ocean?
Mountains.
Long train rides or domestic flights?
Canada.
Canada. Oh, that's a good one. I wouldn't expect to love Canada either. Sorry, Canada. You're beautiful. Your people are great. Destination that challenged you the most?
Egypt, of course. Egypt. And then also Mexico was very challenging.
Yes, in its own special way, especially with the water and the food. Especially wanting that urge to eat the street food and then that urge to, not be sick.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
One place you'd go back to tomorrow.
Mongolia.
Mongolia. Love it. I knew that. I totally knew you were going to say that. Give yourself a pat on the back. All right. Well, Ting Ting, that was fun. Thanks for playing that with me. We love to do that little rapid fire question game. Now, I just want to know, who do you think adventure retreats are perfect for? If there are people listening, that don't know if they're a good fit for an adventure retreat, and who might want to ease into them?
I would say that the people who are afraid that they're not up for it are actually the people who probably will have the best time ever, because it really shifts who you believe you are as a person and how capable you are and how able you are to be on an adventure. I'd say it's perfect for people who have a fear of letting go of taking control because they're so used to controlling every aspect of their life, and to actually surrender to someone else being like, we're doing this, we're doing that, this is a schedule, and come enjoy, is also so healthy. To just be in the passenger seat for once in a while in your life, especially if you're running a business or you have family and kids and all this stuff, and just to let go is actually so helpful and healthy for us to take that break. And so I think these two people, they'll be surprised at how much they'll enjoy an adventure retreat.
I couldn't agree more. I think some of my most favorite trips, I've come back saying, wow, that was like amazing. I didn't expect to love that so much. Like, I'm so glad I did that. So Ting Ting, thank you again for coming on. I lastly just want to know, where can our listeners follow you, find you, connect with you, travel with you? Yeah, where can we find you?
You can find all of the upcoming trips on Instagram. It is Guanjing Method. That is the tag. And then you can also check out guanjingmethod.com for all the latest retreats and trainings and fun adventure retreats.
Well, Ting Ting, thank you again for coming on and just sharing everything about you, from your origin story to your favorite trips, and just inspiring our travel brats to get out there and travel adventurous.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so, so grateful to have this conversation and to connect.
Travel Brats, thanks for tuning in. Catch ya on the next Travel Brat Tuesday.
Hey, 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 it's your Travel Brat Nat. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We love creating episodes based on places you are planning to visit. So, if you'd like to request an episode on a specific destination, you can visit thetravelbrats.com, go to About Us, then Where to Next to submit a request on an episode on your upcoming vacation destination.